It's May 29th, 2022. I'm in this, I'm like on the verge of tears right now. It's a horrible, horrible life, horrible people. I feel so bad. Um, it's just, like, we the people, horrible people. Um, we, Linda wanted to go out to the outlets. So now what's weird is I used to live on something called Peconic in a place called Connecticut. So the name sticks out. Um, and we went out to something called Tangier, or Tanger. They call it Tanger. Tanger Outlets in Riverhead, I believe is where it is. It's like when the expressway just ends. And they have all these outlet stores, but the clothing is not quality like anymore. It's so hit or miss. Um, Going through, like, there's some nice things, but there's so few and far between. It's so much work to try to find some clothing. Then, of course, for a woman, there's the size that I've blown up to where I don't even want to look in the mirror. So that's just absolutely disgusting. And change it, wanting to, like, my inner fitness person wants to work out 2 hours a day at a gym, but of course, because of the level of health or the degree of health that I'm at, it's not even, um, I don't even know where to begin on that. So, and cooped up into this, whatever. Um, and as we were leaving, it said there was something called a Peconic Land Trust. I had never heard of. And then it said something about preserve or reserve. But it's quite a distance from where we were. But my mom had one of her, she's 6 brothers, one died, but one had some personal effect happen, and now he's stuck in this facility. He broke his hip, um, and so now, of course, I have, like, I don't know, you call it advocacy training. I heard the other day that there's something called an advocacy. Just enough, like, I know how when the physiology is working, what the working parts are, and their physiological function. I'm not up to date on all of the decreased functions and disorders, but enough to know whatever. But he's in this facility, and maybe 20 years older than I am. And it's just, he's by himself. He's got no family. Um, and he's just stuck there. Like, he's got his brothers and sisters, although one sister died, but he's got my mom, I guess. But just to know that he's stuck in that bed and that he can't move and that he's in pain, and the way that not all, because there was a nurse there that was on staff that I went to speak to, and he was, while I was there face to face with him, he was very professional. His respiratory nurse, I ran into her. She was very professional to face. But he says that when there are times where the overnight staff, the ones that I did not see, um, he's had trouble where he needs things and he's not getting the level of care that he needs. Um, and it is so depressing to be inside one of these facilities. And again, with personal care, wishes, and desires, the way that they're staffed is not whatever. Um, their treatment of him is not the way I would want my loved one or myself to be treated, for certain. Um, and then Lou's telling me that he's got a friend who wishes she could get in a place like this, and I'm like, it is so disgusting. And then as we're driving home, there's all these radiological towers. And I really should have just kept videotaping them, but Lynn and Lou were having this conversation, and I didn't want them on my video recording. But in an hour and something ride on the expressway to, like, tape what the landscape is like, because they've got all these gigantic, large radio towers just sending signals out. I don't know what signals they're sending. And then we actually passed through an area in Nassau County where the air was so thick with pollutant. They call it pollen, but pollen and the word pollute are spelled awfully similar. And they looked almost like, if you've ever watched a home improvement show, when they blow in insulation, like fiberglass insulation, in order to insulate an attic, where it just particleizes, and they have like these big, they put like whatever's on, like big hazmat suits, they put respirators on, and but that's what's going through the air, and I mean big chunks of it. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, I mean it's more like a cotton candy look, like if cotton candy just dissipated and then like you had to breathe that air in. It's like that thick and noticeable, and it was clouds of it, like plumes of it that we drove through. Like the pollen count was so high. Not only were there larger particulates in the part that you're supposed to breathe, but there also was such a high minuscule pollen count that you could actually see it in like almost like a hazy cloud form as you drove through. I tried again, I was going to get a video of that, but at the exact moment when it was at its worst, when I was grabbing my camera, Lynn and Lou was talking about a personal story, so I couldn't even really, I didn't want that in the background. Um, so it's just, it's just everywhere. Like the degradation and the fact of like the entrapment. And I had this conversation with Lou, and he's like, "Oh, we have like the highest per capita like employment rate, whatever." And I go, "Lewis, focus. That was the goal of what was supposed to be within my life frame. They never allowed your daughter to obtain that level of success in this system the way that it unfolded or the way it manifested. So you have to stop like pronouncing and repeating the lie that we are the best at something when there's clearly something else going on. Because I went to college. First of all, I went to high school. There was no instruction to get through the rest of my years. Then I got out of college. I got out of high school. I went to this thing they call college. I was learning absolutely nothing. There was no mentoring, no guidance, no anything. There was no service offered. And then there's no instructions, there's no tasks, there's no this is how you're going to get from your teens, your late teens, into your 20s, into your 30s, well into your 70s. I said, he's like, "Oh, you had a job at Merrill Lynch." I go, "Lewis, I got to a job at Merrill Lynch where they paid me $28,000 a year. That is working poverty in New York." I said, "I couldn't even get out of your house." I was like, then I had the burden of a child laid upon me, which I wasn't expecting. And then life went off the rails there. I was like, but cut at that point, I was like, and the burden trap was already set and laid. and I went to the college. It didn't provide or fruit. There was no talks of graduate school. There's no talks of a master's degree. There wasn't even talk of a career path, even though I spent all the money on the education and the classes. There was no route. I was like, and then I get to employment at Merrill. They hire me at this working, working poverty level. I was like, so I'm stuck in your house. I was like, and there was no career development plan set forth by the company. There was no like, work for us, we're your brand, we're your community now. Like, here's what you can expect if you work with us and you help build our brand and our company, and here's how we'll contribute back to you. There was none of that. There was no camaraderie. There was no, it was just like busy work with no set plan. There was no strategic development. There was no way. I mean, and I'm not even talking like, because some people, I was even said to them, I was like, some people, they get CEO positions right out of like, just because their parents are whoever they are and they live wherever they live in the situations, whatever the situation is, Lewis. And he's like, I said, but even dropped out of that category at the bottom level where they like threw me into, I was like, they didn't even fulfill on any life sustaining practices. I mean, as a state and as a government, there's got to be some responsibility in like a land trust kind of a way.
What'd you get?
To build a to build a pathway to success. I mean, how do all of these other people do it? And I mean, like, where do you go for this level of help?
Oh, what you get?
So, I don't know. So now I'm just creating what it actually looks like for the ground floor, what the preceding generation, how laws, I mean, like, they're just, I mean, I have, like, I guess you could consider it a tesseract in, like, a Marvel whatever. I mean, I've never lived at Mardi Gras level, but at Marvel whatever, and this idea of a qubit of something that you've documented, or transparency of a real finite look at what's here. I mean, there has to have been some level of expectation, some level of promise, some level of something when you have human lives that you're in charge of. There's got to be some level of expectation in common law. Then I heard that the president, with certain corporations, they took away common law for some of the citizens, like where you can't even sue if you get hurt something. Not that I would know how to sue anyway. I don't even know what level of attorney I would need. It's not like anybody's forthcoming about any of this. I don't know about these, like, I really, like, I don't even know where to begin or where to look or who to even ask for help. At one point, there was a strategic planner, but they had a CD that they gave me. There was a conference call set up. I went with that, but then they needed money per month, and I'm like, I don't have. That's what I'm looking to figure out what I'd be good at. But it never fruited again in anything. It's so frustrating. And it's like a slow drowning. It's like being left out at sea, all by yourself, treading water. Got pulled out by some rip current, and you're out there. And I mean, like, I can see, at times, I can see the shoreline, but I don't know how. I'm just, it's just, it's just not feasible, I guess, at this point. I just don't know. Um, it's so frustrating. And then to see like the generation before me that I was looking to have answers, to have like this plan of their own that I could join, that I could, I mean, and there'd be nothing. Nothing established, nothing offered, nothing, no participation, no anything. Just left on my own to almost like drown. It's just disgusting. It's absolutely filthy and disgusting. Star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza, it's Earth. solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.